European leaders are meeting in Brussels on Thursday to discuss security, defense spending, and support for Ukraine amid ongoing peace negotiations. On arrival, Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof expressed support for the proposals in the White Paper on Defense that was unveiled on Wednesday, but cautioned against more joint borrowing.
We look constructive to the plans, but we always say, and said it 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to say it today, that sustainable debt is important, that there should be a good balance in finance, and financial health is important. Those are issues, and we are opposing Eurobonds. It's not new, it's what we always say, so there is no problem at all with the Netherlands.
EU Foreign Chief Kaja Kallas proposed an initiative to deliver more artillery ammunition to Ukraine.
For Ukraine, I've proposed initiative to really go with the ones that President Zelensky needs. Ammunition in amount of 5 billion. So we should at least start to have a really concrete step, not only words but also in deeds, that we are helping Ukraine right now, because the stronger they are on the battlefield, the stronger they are behind the negotiation table.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is also joining European leaders for a working lunch on multilateralism.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is playing to win time and win on the battleground while Ukraine is ready for peace. This is according to Manfred Weber, the president of the centre-right European People's Party, EPP. Speaking in a live interview hours before a crunch summit of EU leaders kicked off in Brussels, Weber said the Trump administration in the US is now seeing the reality.
Well, the result is that there is no ceasefire. That's a result in this moment of time. There is no final agreement, and we don't know what really will happen in the next upcoming days on the battleground. And you can really see that Zelensky, the Ukrainians, are ready to go for peace, and Putin is playing. He wants to win time. He wants to win on the battleground. That's a reality. He has no interest to stop the war. Now, also the American administration is now arriving in this reality that the war is not easy to be stopped because Putin has a clear plan, and that means to really conquer, to really occupy Ukraine.
The EPP leader also reacted to Europe's current exclusion in the telephone diplomacy between the three leaders. Weber said Europe and Ukraine must be on the table.
Well, absolutely. Europe and Ukraine must be on the table, and America must understand there will be no agreement at all without the country of Ukraine. It's a sovereign country. They have their president, they have their parliament, they have national unity in defending themselves and their values, democracy and freedom. So that's why it's unthinkable.
High on Thursday's summit agenda are plans to rearm Europe so as to ensure it can rely on its armed forces and military might in the event of aggression.
What I want to say is that we would save a lot of money if we would do things together. That's why the main initiative is now common procurement, do things together, invest in Europe, buy European, and we need some flagship projects where people immediately understand that as Europeans together, we are better protected. Look for cyber defense, where everybody understands that there is no national border anymore, or a missile defense system, a drones defense system. Let's do this on the Polish-Belarusian border for all Europe. Then we are better protected if we do it together.
Thursday's emergency meeting in Brussels was convened in reaction to Trump's fast-moving diplomacy. The meeting will also address the need to boost competitiveness, the situation in the Middle East, amongst others.
The threat of Russia attacking the EU and NATO states from the territory of Belarus should be taken very seriously. Belarusian opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya told Euronews, warning that it will depend on whether Ukraine's interests are sacrificed now. How do you assess this risk?
I would perceive these threats very seriously. Because while Lukashenko is in power, Belarusian land can be used as launching pad for attack again on Ukraine or on our Western neighbors. You know, it's no problem for Lukashenko to serve to Putin and give our land and infrastructure, you know, for the invasion. Until regime is there, there will be constant threat to your security. We have to dismantle this regime, to get rid of Lukashenko. Only in this case, Belarus will not be the source of constant blackmailing with migrants, nuclear weapon or joint drills with the Russians.
Do you think the risk of the possible invasion from the territory of Belarus towards NATO members, the Baltic states, could be coming as quickly as this year?
Look, I can't predict this because dictators are irrational. I understand that all the countries who want peace in our region, including the USA, not to provide long-lasting peace, it would allow Russian troops to regroup, to strengthen itself and to start invasion or blackmail with the invasion in the nearest future. So on the fact how European Union, together with hopefully the USA, will act now, if they will not sacrifice with the Ukrainian territories or with Ukrainian interests, that will embolden Russians. So maybe it will not happen. But if solutions that we are taking now about Belarus, about Ukraine, that we are ready, to leave some territories under Russian influence, so it will show that the democratic world cannot answer decisively. That they accept that subjugation or invasion of other countries is possible, and they don't have instruments, to counter this. It might happen that they will knock to the doors of European Union.
Thousands of protesters took to the streets of Istanbul on Thursday despite a demonstration ban implemented by local authorities. People are protesting against the arrest of Ekrem İmamoğlu, Istanbul's mayor, who is also a key rival to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
Bu yapılanlar kesinlikle hukuksuz. Hukuksuz ve temelsiz. Bu demokrasi değil.
The leader of the mayor's Republican People's Party criticized the arrest and claimed Erdogan targeted İmamoğlu as he feared losing to him in the ballots.
Yapılan iş bir darbedir. Bir darbe girişimidir.
The Turkish Minister of Justice countered these allegations and said that the courts operate independently.
Tarafsız ve bağımsız yargının gerçekleştirmekte olduğu soruşturmaları farklı taraflara çekmek, darbe gibi ifadelerle nitelendirmek son derece tehlikeli ve yanlıştır.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen expressed deep concern over the arrest. She reminded Turkey of its obligation to uphold democratic values.
We want Turkey to remain anchored to Europe, but this requires a clear commitment to democratic norms and practices, and it is key that Turkey respects these fundamental principles.
Prosecutors have accused İmamoğlu of corruption as well as aiding the outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party.
The CEO of Barclays Europe has weighed in on Europe's economic attractiveness amid concerns over tariffs and global competition. His comments come as Germany's parliament this week approved a reform of its debt brake proposed by Chancellor-in-waiting Friedrich Merz.
If this reform makes attractiveness is inherently a relative concept, and investors and the global capital that they represent have choices, and where they apply their capital ultimately expresses that choice of relative attractiveness. So I think what we've seen in the year-to-date period is clearly a compression in the US stock market, for example, and an increase in the indices that I look at for the European stock market. That tells you something.
According to a recent report from Morgan Stanley, European equities have this year outperformed US stocks by the widest margin since the year 2000. The MSCI Europe index has risen over 9% since January, beating the S&P slide of 4.5%. CEO Sesato also warned of a possible recession that could be triggered by the situation in US.
At the end of the day, the euro area has roughly 480 billion euros of goods exports to the US. Now, at the moment, the latest models that our research team have looked at are relatively mild in terms of the tariff assumption that's being made. But were there to be a 25% tariff on all of those goods, that could actually tip the Eurozone into recession.
Finally, on improving Europe's competitiveness, Barclays CEO highlighted the need for deeper capital pools, advocating to pair institutional firepower with private capital to address major challenges, noting that relying solely on retail investments would be insufficient.
Having ring-fenced €800 billion for its Rearm Europe plan, the EU will have to spend wisely on defence, and timing is everything. A lesson that Ukraine has learned in 3 years of war.
I think Europe has to invest a lot in general in defense, just because we see how the world is uncertain right now. If you have a stock of really good but really expensive equipment, it will be depleted really soon. So drones are our way to answer big opponent.
Cheap drones have been crucial, both in terms of surveillance and launching attacks ahead of using more expensive tech.
The Ukrainians have driven the Russian Black Sea fleet away from the coast without the Ukrainians having a navy at all. They've used basically drones and new technologies to do it. So if you're Europe and you need to replace capabilities or develop new effects, I think the main takeaway is look at dual-use technologies.
Being able to test the tech on the battlefield is also vital, and that takes time.
Time is really precious right now in politics, in economy, and in defense too. If you can buy some time with money, you better do it.